This is the first image which I want to show to myself. The image of my entering a trade which cost me about 4% of my account. The entry totally against my rules, the entry driven by forces which I'm gonna attempt to describe later in this video, forces which some of them I sort of know them, I'm sure about them, and the others probably sit deeply in my unconscious, and I only speculate about them. So this is the first image. I entered max, high risk, at the point, at a totally nonsensical point on the chart, against my rules, and paid for it later, right? It looks on this image, it looks like, oh, I'm entering, it's going down, I'm entering, but this is just a fucking illusion. And yeah, I paid for it. So now I'm gonna go to the second image that belongs to this particular story. And this image shows I was knocked out of my position around 5 o'clock. I took the trade around 1 o'clock afternoon, and this knocked me out shortly after 5 o'clock. There was a huge jump in the spread, and the spread went up to more than 9 points. The regular spread is about 1.5, and it really fucked me up. But if I chose to keep it overnight, as I sometimes do, hoping that this very, very, very losing trade would recover, had I kept it, it wouldn't be of any use. And I'm gonna show it on the third image that pertains to this particular trade. The market went very high against me, and even if I kept it, I would be thrown out basically at around the same level as it did it to me yesterday. This image is already January 23rd, and my trade was entered on January 22 to 2025 at around 3 o'clock afternoon. So this is the first part of this video, and the next part will be basically describing, talking, trying to figure out how to deal with these entries, which I used to call by the name waves of insanity. And now I have another name for it, maybe not another, but just an additional name, which is great resignation. All right, and now I'm gonna put on the second part of this video. Here it is. And now I'm going to do what I said this channel would be about. I'm going to do some self-hypnosis. Trade number 54 in my small live account, taken on January 22nd, 2025 at 1:58 p.m. The events pre-staging this trade were as follows. Trade number 51 in live account, taken on January 20th, 2025, which lost $42, which equals 3% of my account. Trade number 52, taken on January 21, 2025, which made plus $6. Trade number 53 on January 22, 2025, which lost $9. These last two trades were basically like treading water, going in circles. It was super frustrating in terms of failing to undo the big loss. I can see now that this was building up the energy in me to force the resolution because I was not getting it in the prescribed by the rules, tedious, going in circles way. And that's why I've blown up. My great resignation, suicide trade, happens always after a loss. It can be even a relatively small loss, but a loss which I cannot stand because it fails to fix something much bigger that happened before. I'm sure the impulse to do this will arise again and again. I'm sure it cannot be 100% controlled, just like the evil or disabling or self defeating thoughts cannot be controlled, but I cannot act on it just as I am not acting on my evil thoughts. When I trade, I have to deal correctly with the price action behavior, but this is only a very small part of the game. 90% of the game, as I see it now, is about dealing properly with the behavior of my mind. I'm aware that I must start doing something to control it because I cannot count on it to be what it has to be. I must be able to control my mind at the point when the impulse to fuck myself up arises. But how can I use what fucks me up, which is my own mind, to unfuck my mind? It seems that presently I am not in position of the mind that can control itself. The great resignation trade happens always when I have a great need to undo former loss. It happens when this need exists, but the price action is not giving me the right, as per the rules, opportunity to undo it. So I make a violent, emotionally driven move in attempt to force what I desperately need when I cannot get it the way it has to be gotten, the way bound by the rules. I see that this behavior may be coming out of my inherent hatred for the rules, for being caged, imprisoned, oppressed by the rules and regulations. I notice that this I notice that the resignation trade sets the stage for my dealing with a super fascinating phenomenon. The whole huge drama of being forced into idiotic behavior against my sane will and giving in to my insane will. And this drama is very fascinating. I may need this drama more than I need perfect process of taking perfect and utterly boring trades. I fall into a wave of insanity, into my great resignation trades when I need some drama after a period of uneventful, boring trading. I noticed very clearly I was doing this with A and being surprised by it, but somehow unable to not do it, even when I thought I knew when the energy of it was arising. I had to collapse that piece with some drama. I had to enter into a conflict in trading. I regularly enter into a conflict with my clearly set trading rules and engage In the revenge trading, the day before, I made $6. Today, January 22nd, 25, I lost $9 and I could not stand it. I was so pissed off about this up and down, a waste of effort and frustration from going in circles. And yet, I wasn't going in circles for a long time, just two trades. And yet, this was enough to set me up for another wave of insanity. True, I got very tired late in the day, very bored, and very frustrated. I went into a state in which I didn't care anymore. I needed a bigger win. I was sick of waiting and going in circles. So I said to myself, fuck it. I will enter mux because price action is falling. I guess I got that from Nick. Would I have been fucking surprised if it took me out? No. And yet I entered. This is a super interesting study. Perhaps I can win here just as I had won with my depression when I took it to my lab. Perhaps I must devote myself to the study of my thoughts and emotions as I am trading. This study would be a priority, and my trading would be just a procedure that generates these thoughts and emotions that must be dealt with. I see it the same as losing control with B. I've pricked myself with the elastic on my wrist as a constant reminder of how to behave. I was utterly set on self-control, and I always lost it. I saw something. My St. Paul way of trading, all this terrible struggle to behave properly and repeated failure. All this is fascinating. A perfect process with zero unforced errors. This would be utterly boring, and I need the fascinating stuff. How fucked this is. I see myself as two persons in one, the sane and the insane. But what if the sane cannot win all the time? Yesterday, January 22nd, when I went mux and high risk on a trade, I was totally aware of committing a trading sin. I was totally aware of doing something I knew I could not be doing, and yet I did it. And this is a fascinating phenomenon. Do I go into this shit out of my need to deal with this utterly fascinating stuff? The strange phenomenon of resignation, quitting the rules, is an act of desperation, throwing myself into a huge gamble as if I had to in order to save myself and losing it over and over again. Am I playing out my hidden desire to unexist here, to exit, to die? Am I playing it out in a safe environment? What I have said here is meant to help me undo my waves of insanity, my great resignation trades. Perhaps it will be of some use.